So I was on another podcast last night that will be out later this month, and their recording process was entirely different than what we do. And it was really interesting. Not good, bad, or ugly, just very different. And it was really weird. I never thought about the fact that other people record things in a totally different way.
There's a couple of services and that seem to be horrible. I don't know.
No, they. I have seen people that use the browser plugins, so you actually record through the browser, and I guess that works. I don't know. I've never actually tried it. But, it was interesting. We talked on the phone and had headphones in to listen to the phone conversation, but then we turned on our mics and recorded the audio locally. And then the editor goes back and puts the pieces together. But there was still syncing that had to happen, so somebody would count and then we'd clap at the same time. So it was crazy. Ours is just simpler to me. But
I've done a few podcasts and people use these online things, and the reason we record locally is so that we have good audio, regardless of any interruptions. And I've actually recorded a couple interviews. I did an interview with a university, and the woman lost everything because she trusted this browser thing. And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have it." And I said, "Oh, well, I have it locally. I recorded it." She's like, "You did?" I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Just to have it. I mean, I didn't even thought I would use it again." I mailed it to her. She was able to edit the whole thing together.
Nice.
One of these days, I would like to hand off the whole podcast operation to somebody else to edit and post, do a new website, something that's a little bit more friendly. And
hint.
What's that? I'm looking for somebody, but I want somebody who has moved podcasts before and has some editing experience. Because if you have ever looked at your phone and all of a sudden 300 episodes of a podcast are re-downloading to your phone because it got moved, and I want to avoid all of that,
Yeah.
Oh,
for sure.
By the way, guys, since I have you while we're talking, my buddy Mo said last 2 times his podcasts were interrupted and then unavailable. So I don't know if that's a local thing to his phone, but he wanted to let us know. I don't know if anybody else is having that problem.
That's
episode
him.
Unavailable. This episode is temporarily unavailable. But that's happened to me also before with the iTunes app.
Well, there's your problem.
iTunes. Is that it?
Oh, here we go.
It's the Apple.
Here we go.
Yeah,
here we go, Bob.
I have.
I personally have never had. I've had that warning come up, but once in the whole time I've used.
I stopped using the Apple podcast app because I had some weird inconsistency stuff, and I started using something else. And I've never had that problem.
What do you use?
I use something called
Overcast.
Overcast.
Oh,
Overcast. Yeah, it's nice. It's got some cool little features to it. It's a basic podcast player, but you can have it play at different speeds to come back. You can have it cut out silence breaks and stuff like that to kind of make it easier and faster. But it's good.
I listened to a couple of podcasts, and I'm not going to say who because he doesn't listen to this, but still, I don't want to call him out. I was going to make up an anonymous email and send it to him and tell him what he does. He ums and ahs and says, and he's a really established person. So much. Now everyone's going to be super conscious of this. But before everything. I thought about actually taking one of his podcasts and editing out all the actual tangible words and just leaving all the sounds he makes in between all the words. I love this person. I love listening to him, and I get so much information. But sometimes I just have to turn it off because I hear so many, it's very, very distracting. So all you podcast guys out there, try and guess who it is.
Yeah, I think editing helps with that a lot. We sometimes if things are not edited, a lot of that stuff is left in, whereas some really basic editing can just start your sentences the right way. It makes things flow better.
Totally. It's just such an interrupt. I was listening in the car drive home from Chicago, and it was driving me crazy, but I still wanted to hear what he had to say because it was an important topic. I'll power through it. I'm sorry. Brought this up.
Suck it up. So, we were all in Chicago. David, you got home an hour ago, right?
Yeah, I was in Chicago longer than expected. I had my flight canceled, and then I got on another flight, and then that one was canceled.
Is it due to the fog? Is that why?
Due to the fog, yeah.
Yeah, I was driving in the fog. I was waiting to hit a pile up. It was really, really dense.
Huh.
It's crazy.
It did allow me to go check out the Chicago Field Museum, which was amazing. It was
it looks like a gorgeous place.
Unfortunately, it's kind of pricey. It was like $30-some, which was fine. But I'm like, oh, I only have an hour. So I like rushed through everything. This is when there was only a delay. So I'm like, okay, I'll just check this out and then head to the airport. And then I rushed through everything. I'm like, man, I wish I had a few more hours to spend here. And then I get to the airport and then my flight is canceled. I'm like, no.
Oh, man.
But one of the things is, so there's a lot of dioramas there, some taxidermy. And I appreciate it so much more because this thing that we were in Chicago for, there was a guy that gave a little session on the history of taxidermy.
Oh, you sat in that, right? That was great. And then later on, I sat with him while he actually did
this class. It was really good. Yeah, that guy was so passionate and had so much energy about taxidermy. Like I was into it. I'm like, I'm switching careers.
Yeah, he's in Brooklyn. I'm gonna hook up with him. He's in Brooklyn. I'm gonna call him and go visit him and do a little segment on it.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome.
And plus, he taught me how to taxidermy a mouse, so that was my Instagram post.
Yeah, we had a really interesting weekend, and we got to see Jimmy walking around with a dead mouse, and that was gross.
I saw your Instagram story. I thought you were just taking a picture. I didn't realize I was going to be on Instagram.
So we were all three in Chicago for this unconference. It's a conference that's an invitation only, so it's not something that everybody gets to go to. And it's called an unconference. It's really kind of unusual, and all sorts of interesting stuff happens, and you get experiences that you probably wouldn't get other places. And one of them was doing taxidermy on a mouse.
Yeah, it was about six of us, and we powered through it. And I would attach Brant's Instagram, but he asked us all, he said, please, if you post any of this, do not attach my Instagram because I don't want people to think that this is the net result of my class. No disrespect to all of us, but he said the lesson he taught me and the other students in that particular session usually is an 8 to 9 hour course. We did it in like an hour and a half. So we rushed through it. So he didn't want anybody to see the net result of like what we did, kind of at least whatever. So he just asked respectfully that we don't attach him to the Instagram, but ultimately, when I go show his portfolio, you'll see who he is. Anyway, but it was a great experience. I never thought I'd be able to get through what we did. We actually had to open up the mouse, take his coat off, basically, and put his coat around something else.
That's gnarly.
We used clay and wire and stuff, just like you would have. And I guess a mouse is small enough where it's not going to get, stinky. But we also did use borax soap to tan the little tiny hide, the little coat.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's why you guys didn't notice in the room, but there was borax in these dishes, and once you opened it up, you kept rubbing the skin with boraxo. I don't know how to say it exactly, and that starts the tanning process. And because it's small enough, it'll dry like an insect or bird. You just pin it in position. Yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't know borax was the thing. I mean, that makes sense because they tell you to use borax for bugs.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like if you have fleas or roaches or stuff like that, if you sprinkle borax over a doorway where they walk through, it's basically really, really tiny, sharp pieces of this material. And so when the bugs walk over it, it slices their outer layer, and they end up drying out because it opens them up and their whole bodies dry out. So it kills bugs.
So wild.
Yeah, but it's so small that it doesn't hurt us. So I guess that's why it works for taxidermy as well, because it's drying out the surface.
Huh. I got the feeling that this only works for like small stuff. Obviously, if we were going to do a deer or something, I'm sure there's a much more industrialized process.
You got a hair dryer?
I mean, for like a chemical tanning process to tan the skin of a deer, for instance. Yeah. But it was a great experience. I mean, that was just one thing, and we all did different things, and it was great. It was a great experience. And by the way, it goes for like 70 hours straight. I don't know how many hours does it go? 48 or 70 hours straight. So that's why there's no breaks. There's no time to go and do a hangout. So that's why we didn't do any of that stuff. It's just a solid event. It starts and then it ends like a day and a half later or something.
To be clear, it's not like a making event. Not like you're not learning how to do things. It's like a show and tell. And some things could be businessy, some things could be just life stories or encouraging or people asking questions, and it's all over the place.
Yeah, it's not just one thing. But it was a lot of fun.
It's a really interesting thing. Yeah. And the three of us got to hang out. And we got to hang out with, let's see, Benueto was there.
Evan and
Evan and
Caitlin.
Yep. Dustin Penner.
Yep. The Domino girl, she was great. She ended up kind of hanging
Lily.
Oh,
out with us.
Lily. Yeah. Yep.
She was cool.
Yeah. So anyway, if you saw that we were in Chicago and were mad that we didn't like do a hangout, that's why.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
But well, other than that, what have you guys been up to? Anything previous to that?
I just drove home from Chicago. Took me.
Well, that's after. I drove to Chicago. That was before.
What did I do? I have a couple. I've been kind of hitting it hard with the videos. I've been getting things ready. I go through these phases where I work on like 7 or 8 videos, and slowly each one of them matures for publication slowly. And in the last 2 weeks, I put up quite a few videos. I don't even know, to be honest, how many. Maybe 3, maybe 5. I forgot. And I have a few more in the shoot. So by the time this podcast airs, I will have a couple more ready to go. And so it's exciting. It's exciting to get ahead a little bit.
I'm finally
Nice.
releasing the benchtop accessories video that's coming out on Thursday. So yesterday for you listeners, some of you listeners. And then I'm going to start just trying to experiment a little bit more and do some more fun, crazy things. I have a 3D printer coming. That's arriving today. And so
Sweet.
that's another weapon in the arsenal. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. So what are your immediate plans with that? Anything?
Immediate plans is so we talked over the weekend. I have this MIDI piano keyboard that it's made of plastic, and I want to gut it, and I want to remake the frame out of wood, and I want to use the laser cutter to kind of remake the panel so the buttons and the display can shine through. And I thought about printing some non-slip feet for the bottom of it. And then Bob was like, you can also 3D print some knobs. So I might attempt that as well. So I think the knobs might be my first introduction into 3D printing something that I've designed.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. That'll be fun. It'll be fun to see. I've been kind of doing the 3D printing stuff long enough that it's not quite magical anymore. It's still really cool, but like a lot of times when people get the printer for the first time, you start printing stuff out and you're just like, whoa, oh, I got it now. Now I see what this thing's capable of, and it's kind of magical to watch. So that'll be cool. What did I do last week? I made a bookcase.
Yeah.
I talked about that last week, I think. Super basic. It's just an adjustable shelf bookcase, where you can move the shelves up and down. But it actually turned my office into just like an entirely different looking space, just because there's not a bookcase that I had from college sitting there covered in stuff that doesn't actually fit on it. So, it immediately looked better. And I did all my audio equipment rack mount in it. So it's mounted inside one of the shelves, and yeah, it's cool. Got all my toys on it, my books,
Nice.
So it actually looks like somebody uses this office for work instead of a storage room. That's good.
Well, it's looking good on camera.
No, thanks. Yeah, I'm happy with it.
Yeah. So I think we have an interesting topic this week. And I'm going to have you start it off, Bob.
Okay. Well, so a lot of conversations this weekend at this event, because a lot of it is just people sitting around getting into conversations. And I found myself in several different contexts saying, yeah, I tend to overthink things, but blah, 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 and I would go on. And I said that a few times in like a 2-hour or 3-hour period. And I was sitting down by myself, kind of like taking a break and going, I just said that I overthink things a lot. Like, I wonder, that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? I know that's part of my process is I like to try to think through something all the way before I get started. A lot of the time, not all the time. But anyway, it just got me thinking about, like, I think we all three have a different approach to, like, how we plan stuff and how we, like, whether we plan or whether we work by the seat of our pants, or just how we approach doing projects and looking to the future. And I think all of those things have their place depending on what you do and who you are. And so I was kind of just wanting to talk with you guys about how that stuff applies to you. And like, if there's maybe something that's natural that's maybe not super helpful, And what I mean by that is like I naturally overthink things and want to try to problem solve before I actually do any work, which is good. It saves a lot of time sometimes. Sometimes it stops me from actually getting anything done, you know. So that's my natural thing, but that's not necessarily the best. So
yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, I tend to not overthink anything because, and there's a couple of reasons for it, because I have attention deficit disorder, I assume. I mean, I have like 7 things that when I was in school they didn't have names for, but I think when it's time to research something or open up a pamphlet or start to look at instructions, I immediately just go, this isn't for me. And I just go right to the unit or whatever it is, and I just start looking at it. And all I usually need, like if it's assembly, I just need a picture of the thing. And then and part of the challenge, part of the fun for me is figuring it out on the ride. And same thing when I have to make something. I just recently made this bender, which is only on Instagram at the moment. It's a bender for my next Lincoln video where it's like a desktop lever and it has this mechanical advantage and it bends metal. And I made it in wood and hot glue at first. And I was in the middle of making it with wood and hot glue, and I actually lost my interest in it. Because I was like, oh, if I was making this in metal, this would be a better connection. Then I just said, why don't I just freestyle it in metal? And I was in the middle of making it out of hot glued up MDF just to understand the mechanics of it. And I didn't really get a much better understanding than what I already assumed I was going to do. And so then I was halfway through it and I just said, all right, let me just start making it in metal. It did take a couple days because I had some interruptions. So it wasn't until about a week later that I actually made it in metal. But just those few minutes of spending with the MDF and the hot glue did give me some insight. But I really thought I was going to solve all the problems right there and then. And when those problems weren't coming to me, I just kept saying, oh, this would be easier if I was using real metal. And this would be easier if I was using real metal. And then I tried the mechanical advantage and it broke the hot glue. And I just said, this will be easier if I just make it in metal. So I just waited. And that little session created a lot of incubation so that when I actually got to making it in metal, a lot of my problems were solved. I mean, so it was good that I did it, but in the middle of it, I kind of lost interest. I got slightly frustrated with the material and said, this will just be better off just working it out in the real material. And when I got to it, I trusted my instincts. But I mean, once you have enough experience with any particular thing, you stop overthinking it. And, you know, I try to apply that to everything I do with my hands, so to speak. So I try. There are times when I overthink it, and that's only because I just don't have an easy answer. And then I let it incubate, and those answers usually come to me later. But I do my best problem solving in real time while I'm working on anything.
I'm probably middle of the road when it comes to overthinking and freestyling. If there's if somebody's counting on me, if there's a deadline, I like to be well planned and well prepared. And if I'm just trying to figure things out, and freestyling is the way to go. I find myself these days, most things are deadline based, but whether it's my own deadline or somebody else's, so everything is kind of planned, and I do a little bit less freestyle. But yeah, I'm not. If I overthink something, I'll just give up on it for sure.
That's pretty consistent? Like if you just spin on something too long, you give up and move on?
I get bored. Yeah, me personally, I get bored and I just say, forget it.
Yeah, I think. Whether it's woodworking or hobbies or anything, doing the dishes. If I overthink doing the dishes, I'm like, forget it.
Interesting. See, I found for me that like the overthinking is often kind of like a momentum building thing, where like maybe overthinking is the wrong term. But if I have a project and I can spend the time to like really start to finish it in my brain, and maybe I'm building confidence and like, okay, now I know what I'm actually going to do, then that builds some momentum and I actually want to go do it. Whereas if there are problems that are unsolved, you know, halfway through this project, I tend to not even want to start it because I haven't thought through all that stuff yet.
I always jump in. I always jump into any project with this sort of caveat, saying to myself, if this is either going to be the finished process or this is going to be the learning process. So if it doesn't come out the way I really expect it to, or if I don't have good results, or if I don't surprise myself and come up with something I didn't expect, this will be the learning process. And then I'll go through it. And there'll be some times where I film stuff and I get to a point and the whole project just goes in the dumper. And I was like, all right, well, I got to start this one again. And I just throw all the footage away. And I've done that only a few times, not a lot, but I have started and stopped projects, or I've started projects, I saw them all the way through to the end, and I go, okay. And then I just immediately started over again, whatever it is. And that first one was me thinking it through. But
and that doesn't like having to throw that away doesn't like diminish your interest in it, or
no, because sometimes like if it's a knife making project, I've done it with knife making projects occasionally because I mean it's making knives to me is definitely something I'm learning. And no. Sometimes it's a client job, and it's obviously not something that's going to be super complicated, or sometimes I'll see it through in like a cheaper material. Like I said, I did, instead of jumping into with metal, I made it with MDF at first. But yeah, there's always that possibility that the project I'm working on is going to be a dud, and then that just becomes my thinking through learning process on that same subject, and then I'll make it again.
Right. Huh. It's funny. I've rarely made anything twice. Like I tend to not get into, well, not even twice, but like if I get 50% through something and it's failing or it's not going the way I want, I rarely start over entirely. I just figure out how to change the direction or change the final goal or something. I think I would probably I think if I did have to throw it away, that would be kind of a kick in the gut and be like, well, now I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Probably. I'm not really sure.
I'm working on this leg duplicator on my lathe right now. You'll see it in the vlog when I publish this week. And it's not working out quite as fast as I expected it to do, like to duplicate. It's not duplicating as quick as I want. I mean, I could actually just freestyle a whole leg quicker than this thing is actually giving me a duplication. And so it's just a matter of tuning it and getting the right materials. And I made this slide thing, which doesn't work the way I expected. So I might just cut that whole piece of steel out and just replace it with something that works better. But I was thinking about it driving, and I couldn't wait to get to the shop to start putting these pieces together just so I can answer some questions that I was having. I'm like, oh, well, what if this intersects that? How is that going to work? And I could sit there and think about it forever and do research and look at other people's thing. Or I could just go and just put it together and know once I'm going into it, I could change this at any point in time.
I do think those of us who work by themselves usually have a lot more time to think about things because you're not interacting with other people, and that can cause you to overthink. And recently, I've said here on the podcast that, I'm not going to apologize for the tools that I use. I'm not going to justify. I'm just going to do what I want to do, and that's just going to be me. And I've been thinking about that, and I'm thinking, okay, like, what is this going to lead to? Like, how can I just make what I want to make in the future, and what types of projects? And I had some great conversations with a couple people over the weekend, and it was just like, oh yeah, just stop thinking about it and just do it. So, I'm not going to announce to the audience like I'm going to try a couple of experiments. I'm just going to do it. And I think just the conversations that I've had with these people over the weekend just kind of put me past the thinking part, and now I'm going to just start executing.
That'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. I think one of the reasons I add the caveat to like when I'm making a video and I'm going to use the laser, and I'll like intentionally put in a little bit about like, oh, I'm going to use this tool that you may not have, and if you don't, here's another way to do it. I think I do that to like curb the response so I don't have to deal with it later. Like I don't have to deal with the comments. I can just kind of deal with it ahead of time.
For sure.
So that it's addressed. So it'll be interesting to see if that's easier for you to deal with after the fact, or ignore after the fact,
right?
Or deal with ahead of time. And you and I would probably deal with it differently anyway. So,
sometimes
it's kind of interesting to hear.
I don't know what my audience expectations are, even though we try to define that. I'm not always good at actually predicting what they expect, or the vocal few kind of skews that a little bit. So it's just gonna do what I want to do, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I'm gonna try to not think so hard about thinking so hard so much in the future. Like I know that I'll get in this weird cycle where I like that. Using certain tools is a really good example of that. Like I think ahead of time. I'm spending my time thinking about what I need to think about how to present those tools in a way, rather than just like the project. Like my mental energy is on the presentation and like dealing with potential comments and stuff about it instead of focusing on the design or focusing on the original thing. So I'm going to try to get out of my own head about that a little bit.
When you said you mentioned you overthink things quite a bit over the weekend, are there certain things that you overthink more than others? Are you overthinking the business part or the planning or the building or the filming?
I don't know. I don't think anything specific stands out. I mean, when it comes down to it, I think we all think about things the same amount, probably. Like, but if you took Jimmy and I and gave us the same project, we would probably spend the same amount of time thinking about it. But he does he does action, thought, action, thought, action, thought. And mine is like thought, action, 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 action. So, and maybe I don't
Someone turn that
it,
into a song.
But like the way I stack those things together, it feels like I do all the thinking up front, which seems like I'm overdoing it or whatever. But I don't know. This is the way I am, and I'm not apologizing for that, and I don't want to change it. But it's cool to be aware of stuff like that.
I think a lot of times overthinking, correct me if I'm wrong, means that you don't have the perfect answer yet. So you're spending a lot of time looking and searching for that perfect solution to whatever it is, even if it's just a curve or if it's just how are you going to draw the curve or how are you going to cut it or what's the actual final finished piece going to look like. So overthinking it is searching for those solutions. And one thing that helps me, and I've talked about it, but in this frame, it's a different answer. I always look and say, okay, I don't know what this part of this project is going to be, but I understand and fully am confident about this part of the project. So let me work on this while this other part incubates. And if that's collecting the materials, knowing, okay, regardless of what it looks like, it's going to be made out of a sheet of plywood. Let me hop in the truck and go get this certain type of plywood I want to use. So when I'm getting the plywood, I'm thinking about all this other stuff. And then I'm like, okay, I know I'm only going to use half the sheet of plywood. So let me just cut this piece away. And while I'm cutting it, my mind's still working on that finished part. And so slowly those answers start to reveal themselves to me as I said this example once before, but I'll say it again. My buddy asked me to move his first time I ever heard of Tormach. He got one, and he's the reason why I have mine. But he said, we got to move it into my basement brownstone in Manhattan. And I got there to help him, and he was actually ill those few days. And me and Welder went to help him, and it was on the sidewalk in front, a 600-pound steel machine. And he's like, how are we going to get it down the stairs? I said, well, I'm not really sure, but I know it needs to be in your foyer. So we got it to the foyer. And he's like, how are we going to get it down in the basement? I'm like, I don't know, but we have to at least get it over here. And so we got it over there. And then he goes, well, how are we going to get it down the stairs? I go, I don't know. Well, at least it has to be on the landing. So then we got it to the landing. It was right there on the landing. And all five of us are sitting around looking at it and go, now how's it going to go down the stairs? I'm like, I don't know. Let's just take it down the first step and then we'll see what answers we get from that. And then within 20 minutes, it was in the basement.
Are you saying one step at a time?
Literally.
That's a really good example. A lot of times it's, overthinking means there's something that hasn't been solved yet. And sometimes when you stop thinking about that, how many times you've been laying in bed trying to fall asleep, thinking about something else, and all of a sudden the answer hits you. It's like when you stop concentrating on it, the solution presents itself.
Yeah. And it's funny because, kind of to switch gears, I do naturally overthink or spend my time pre-thinking rather than thinking on the fly. But occasionally I'll do a project that is all of a sudden I'll come up with something and like, okay, I've got today kind of free. I can do that project now instead of put it on the list and do it eventually. And when I do that, the few times that I've done that, those are some of my favorite projects. It's funny because, the natural thing is to like plan and stack up an order and like, okay, this looks really cool and I'm going to do it in 2 weeks when it's on the schedule. But some of the ones I've enjoyed the most are just really impromptu. Like the Nintendo Switch controller thing that I did last week, which I thought turned out great. I was super happy with the video, super happy with the final product of it. And that was, walking down the stairs to go to work in the morning. I thought, oh, wait a minute. Like I can stick those things to anything. And I immediately sat down and started modeling it. And by mid-afternoon, I had a working prototype of it. And then that just became a video that I was in the middle of doing and I didn't even plan it. So like I want to get into that habit. And I am pretty free about when inspiration like that strikes. Like, I'm not going to always push it off. You know, if I'm excited about something, I'm going to do it, whether I thought of it or I planned it. But I want to make sure that I keep that, like, you know, that spirit of, I'm excited about this right now. So I need to do that thing right now and not just simmer on it because I've already scheduled, you know, a table or something less exciting. So I think it's really just a thing to keep, you know, in my own head to make sure that I'm willing to be agile, willing to not always think so hard about stuff. And there's, you know, there's a time for both things, I guess.
It's why, again, I'm going to be repetitive in a certain way. It's great to play with materials that are less expensive than your final outcome because you could immediately jump right in and start snipping scissors or snipping leather or whatever it is, plastic, cardboard. We keep a lot of packages that come in big boxes. If the box is a big broadside, say like 2 by 3 feet, we always cut those panels out and save them. And there's plenty of times where we use them for just freestyling and trying to think of an idea or map out something or laser cut it into some other shape and then go, okay, now we can laser cut the acrylic. So, something to consider.
Yeah, that's a good idea. As far as like thinking through, and maybe we've already talked about this recently, but do you guys think through the types of materials that you're, or maybe even the types of projects that you're going to do over the next, you know, couple of weeks? Do you try to vary them at all? Do you worry about like, well, I did something kind of similar to this last week, or is that not even a consideration?
For the most part, no. Because like you mentioned before, I like working on the thing that I'm really excited about. And generally, the next thing that I'm excited about is going to be different than the previous one. But sometimes you're going to get a new material or a tool or whatever, and you're going to like, how can I use this? Because I'm excited about this thing. I don't worry about that too much. There was a time about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, where I put out 3 or 4 pen making videos in a row. And I was just like, I'm excited about pens. Here's a basic one. Here's one cut down from a tree in my backyard, and here's a different type.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I mean, it's nice if you do create several videos on the similar subject. You start getting a nice collection. You can make a viewer list of things just like that, like for instance, signs or CNC or stuff that just has to do with laser, stuff that just has to do with leather. You start getting a nice portfolio of different stuff. And even if it's in spurts, I don't mind it at all. I mean, I just put out nearly basically two printing videos in a row, and you know,
yeah,
the haters are going to hate, but that's okay. You know, the people that are enjoying the variety will stick around.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some times where I get excited about something, or maybe like one project spawns another one. You know, you finish one and you're like, oh wait, that gives me an idea for the next thing, and that kind of makes sense. I think there's part of me that just wants to keep people guessing, so they never know what they're going to get, and that means that I can't necessarily do really similar things 2 weeks in a row. But
don't overthink it.
When I'm
yeah,
I definitely do, for sure. I mean, but I like to plan things out, you know, a month or so ahead of time on a schedule so that I can make sure I have what I need to do it when it comes time to do it. I have the design done, I have the materials, so I don't have to like scramble to get it done. And part of doing that is like when you look at the next 4 weeks or something of these are the 4 projects, sometimes I'll just shift them around to keep it from like, so it's not like 3 woodworking in a row and then something else. You know, it'll be like a woodworking and then metal and then 2 woodworking or something to that effect. I don't know. I was just curious if you guys consider that at all, but it sounds like you don't.
Well, sometimes.
So I'm the weird one.
No, once in a while I do. Like I probably wouldn't put out 2 axe sort of videos in a row, but I do. I feel like I feel the itch to do another axe video. So I will do one soon. I have a couple of ideas, but yeah, it's a consideration. But
I mean, when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense except for like the release day. Because once you put a video out, it goes into the catalog with everything else you've ever done. And, you know, nobody's going to go back and like, you remember 2 years ago when you did 2 pen videos in 2 weeks in a row? You know,
yeah, like
it just becomes part of the catalog.
Right.
And so that only matters to the people that are watching right when you come out. And those are the people that actually probably don't care if you do 2 similar things in a row. Those are the people that actually want to just see what you do. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
But I mean, for me, the excitement is just jumping right in. So if we're going to summarize and say, do you overthink? I try not to. And occasionally, if I do find myself overthinking and I don't really have the solutions, which is really what overthinking is looking for the solutions, I just start working. Either in the finished material or some other practice material. It's funny when I was teaching, a student would come in with like a book binding or a handmade sign or something and go, "What do you think?" I go, "Oh, it's great." I go, "Now make it again." And they're like, "What? Oh, I'm not going to make this again." I'm like, "Is this going to be the only one you ever make in your life? Turn around tomorrow if you got time, make it again right now." Well, the moves, the process is fresh in your mind. Go right to it and start working on it. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Well, if this is just a stepping stone for a grade, then okay. But if you really want to actually develop a skill, just start doing it straight away again.
Yeah. Part of what made me think about this was, so I'm going to make this transformer that I had when I was a kid. The gun, which is like a, I don't know, 2.5-inch piece of plastic gun, I'm going to make it like what would theoretically be full size. So like 4 or 5 feet long. For no reason other than I just want to do it. I don't know why. But it's been on my list for a while. But it's one of those things that I know generally how it's going to be made, but I've never actually sat down and figured out how to build up this volumetric shape that has no has straight lines, but it has no like sharp edges. It has no, And so it's been kind of like boiling, like I'm putting it on the schedule, but I don't really know how to do it. And then this morning, when we went to record, Josh was like, "All right, I'm going to get out of here so I don't, be loud. What do I need to get for the gun?" And I'm like, "Oh, didn't really think this through." I'm like, "I don't know. 4-inch PVC, 2-inch PVC, and some craft foam. And we'll just go from there." So that's what we're going to do today when we finish recording. I'm just going to go in there and just do it. And I have to scale up, a 2.5-inch thing to 4 feet or more, which I still don't even know how big it's going to be. So I'm just going to figure it out. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do with it when I'm done. I have this giant gun. But hey.
What is it going to shoot? Is it going to shoot something?
No, it's actually going to shoot anything. I am probably going to put some electronics in it, though. Maybe like a soundboard.
It's going to shoot the Decepticons.
LEDs and stuff. That's right. Jimmy doesn't know what that is.
I don't know what those are. Is that something to do with a toilet, a septic?
Yep, that's what it is.
You got it.
Yep. Let's move on. So
the instant you said Septicon, I thought of toilet, like flash. Let's do word association. Should play that one day.
That'd be a fun one.
Septicon,
porcelain
toilet.
Yeah. Well, what else is going on? Anybody got any other thoughts? Anything? Did you come away from this weekend, which I know not everybody went to, so they can't, but did it spur anything in you that like your brain is churning on?
I am so recharged. It had nothing to do with the event except other than people being in the same room and then talking to a few people. And they listen to this podcast and you know who you are. And I just want to thank them because I'm so excited to work on these couple of out there projects. They might take longer than a week to make. I now know that that's okay. I don't have to put out a video every week. I should put out something that's I want to do. It might be a little bit more fun and out of the ordinary, and it's going to be okay if I miss a couple weeks to do so.
One thing I enjoy about being in a big group like that is practicing talking to people, because that's the one thing I've always fear. If it's overthinking anything, it's getting into a group of people and talking, because I'm always like, well, how am I going to start talking? But of course, the environment at this particular it's called Ord Camp, but the environment at Ord Camp is extremely welcoming. There's no judgment. So you can just walk right up to somebody and it's common practice. And that also helps my confidence level to be able to just talk to anybody, anywhere. My confidence level has gotten much better as an adult, and also since I've done YouTube, because you got to look at a camera and talk to the camera. And then when you're with people, you're like, oh, there's no camera. This is even easier. But in general, just the idea of practicing and sharing ideas with people and listening to their ideas. And, even if we just brainstorm a little bit about something that's at hand during the conference, it's nice. And I reluctantly did a talk on printing presses. And I thought, I don't want to do that. But I really did it because I wanted to meet other people that knew more about it than me. It turned out I was the only one in the room that knew anything about it, so it didn't work out as planned. But I did have a little bit of a successful conversation about it. I think went well, and some people were really interested. And I had a little bit more conversation outside that room later on with other people that were there, and so it was successful in that way. But that was important for me to get outside my comfort zone to be able to practice talking. Because we have Workbench Con coming up, and I got to talk in front of an audience there. And so the older I get, the more I practice this, the better I get at it. So Ord Camp was a good opportunity to just practice talking to complete strangers about anything. And they called me on stage. I totally did not know I was going to be called on stage. Did you guys see me get pulled up on stage for 1 second?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty embarrassing.
Really?
I just wasn't prepared to like be in public. I had no idea they would call my name, but it was funny, so I made it funny.
Okay, for the context, let me give everybody context. They had this thing where like this giant Lego table and these buckets and buckets and buckets of white Lego, all white, and
Jimmy's color.
Jimmy's color. And so they were like, make a thing for the World's Fair, and it was basically just make anything you want, stick it on this table, and we're going to judge the things. And there was a piece of paper sitting on the table that said very clearly, that everybody else saw, that said, do not write on the Legos.
What did I do?
And so and I look at the thing and I look up and I see a building, really nice little Lego building that says Diresta in black Sharpie on all 4 sides.
On all 4 sides.
All 4 sides.
Okay, so if you walked up to the city or if you did a drone shot, you would see it at least from every direction you approached.
Diresta Tower.
And so I went over and the Lego guy was there. I forget his name. He was very nice. He knew my videos and stuff. And we got right into a conversation about my stuff. And he said that his kids watch me. And it was really nice. And we were talking for a few minutes. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you're the Lego guy. Because I saw he had the Lego jacket on. And he goes, you weren't supposed to write on the thing. I said, I'm so sorry. I said, I can clean it off. He goes, no, it doesn't matter. He goes, it's no biggie. He goes, but we reminded everybody after you did it so nobody else did it. And we had a little pleasant conversation, and then later on, and they were going through the winners, and it was a really very, very well reasoned why they picked who they picked. They had a really good, like the 2 judges, him and the woman that did the judging, had some very good thoughts on the pieces they picked, and they picked second, third, and then they were about to announce first. But before they announced first, they announced the Trumpy Award, which is kind of like mocking, because I wrote on my building, so they said, oh, Jimmy wins the Trump Award. So everybody kind of laughed. I was like, they booed because somebody brought up Trump's name, but I won the Trumpy Award. So when I went up, I happened to have my stencils in my pocket, so I gave my stencil to the judges, and everybody kind of giggled. So here, you could write my name on everything you own. And so I got a pin for the Trumpy Award. But that was very unexpected because I wasn't really in the category of so-called winners. There was some really nice designs that actually won first place to third place.
So it's really interesting to me, and we've kind of talked about this before, but I had forgotten that you don't have a huge comfort level talking to people, because every time I see you, I mean, when we interact as friends, of course it's different, but when I see you interact with people you don't know at Maker Faire or at any of these events, like, you're super warm and super, like, immediately engaging, and it looks totally natural.
Oh, thank you. I just want to hide under the table and text them. That's what I wish I could do.
That's so crazy. Because you don't see that from, even somebody like who knows you,
I honestly work on it, and every opportunity. There was a moment in time, and I don't know if I ever mentioned this. There was a moment in time where I became single. I was overweight. I was in my 20s, and I was with a girl for a long time. And suddenly I found myself single. We were it was like after college, and she went to college and suddenly got a new boyfriend. Then I was yesterday's news. And so I was brokenhearted, overweight, and shy. And I was all those things at once. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to lose weight. I got to get out of my bubble, and I got to go learn how to talk to people, because now I have to go make a new relationship somewhere in my life. And people started suggesting I go on blind dates. And that was, to me, that was terror. To go on a blind date. Like, what am I going to talk to a stranger about? And I embraced it. After thinking it through, after overthinking it, I said, joke that, we just got a visitor to the house. But the bottom line is I went on like 20 blind dates to practice speaking to people. And I'm going to mute my microphone and you guys can comment.
That is an interesting practice. I mean, like, it's just funny because I wouldn't really think of you, that being an issue, but because it looks to me from my position that you've done a good job of getting past that, because you look so natural when you talk to people. Anyway.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I guess I'm still anchored in my formative years of being so shy, so it's still always ever present, because that's how I became a young man is being just super shy and hiding. It's a big reason why I drank when I was a teenager, to grease the social wheels. I was paralyzed. I'd go out socially and I was paralyzed. I couldn't talk to anybody. So have a few beers and then I'd be completely blacked out and I talked to everybody, but I wasn't there to remember it. But yeah, that's a joke. You guys got all heavy on me there for a second. But thankfully I ended up getting out of that and then just confronting. And that's partly why I was like newly sober and I was newly single. And I said, I got to get past this if I'm ever going to be successful as just a human being. Not necessarily financially, but just a successful human being. I just have to get past this. And going on blind dates was a lot of fun because I would go into it being like, I don't have to fall in love with this person. I don't even have to like make a move on them. This is just social practice. And out of all that, I ended up making actually good friends with one or two people, lasting friendships. I never ended up having a romance out of that time in my life, but it definitely was worth all the practice I gave it. So.
Something new about Mr. Diresta.
Yeah.
Then I'm a shy nerd.
Well, I think you're a successful human being.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, give me a hug.
I agree.
Give me a hug. Come on, get over here. Give me a hug.
Hugs.
Cool. Well, anything else or from the weekend?
I taxidermied a mouse. Did I say that already?
But yeah,
No,
you said
sorry.
it was still as gross as it was then.
So I went to.
I just want to point out, real quick.
Okay.
Hang on. I just want to point out that like they went into this room. I don't know what 10 people or something went into this room, and they're all in there doing taxidermy, and then this woman walks out with a plate. Walks out with a plate of mice, but not like furry mice, like the insides of mice. And it was so crazy because they weren't, I don't want to get gross, but they weren't falling apart. They were the shape of mice. They were still all
with no
intact,
jackets on.
but there was no jacket on. And it was, and so you were saying there's like a membrane around all the insides that hold it into the mouse shape?
Yep. And a couple people kind of penetrated that membrane, but I never knew that. Brant said just kind of gently cut down the back of the coat, unzip the coat from behind the ears to the top of the tail. So we unzipped the coat and then gently start to take the coat off. And then what was left was a red mouse instead of a white mouse that was kind of translucent.
Yeah,
and
just like
she
ML.
went out. What?
Just like Men in Black.
Oh, yeah. I never saw that.
It's one of my faves.
I never saw it. I know it's a movie. I'm kidding. But she walked outside with that plate, and I was like, that's going to raise somebody's anger.
Well, because there are also people like with food walking around on plates.
She thought it was
she
funny.
Walks up with like, it was super.
And
gross.
what was weird is like she's like, I'm going to go get rid of these. I thought she was going to go. I suggested flushing them down the toilet, and she walks out for 10 minutes and then comes back with the plate. I'm like, what did you? She's like, oh, I actually went out for like a joke with them to like kind of get some attention with them. And so they sat in the table. I thought she was going to go flush them because that was the part we don't need anymore. We ended up flushing them ultimately, but then when we ended up having that kind of big group discussion, the joke came up like 4 times because everybody was like, "And the plate of mice."
That session leader, he did the one earlier in the day on the history of taxidermy and how it relates to museums and stuff. And then I went to the actual taxidermy session not to participate. I wanted to be a spectator, and I had to leave after a few minutes. I'm like, I'm going to be grossed out, so I'll see you. And then I leave, and then a plate of mouse guts just in front of my face. I'm like, I don't need to see that.
Well, cool.
And the electric motorcycle was cool. Bob, you and I watched that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some guy converted a gasoline motorcycle, like a 650 type size frame, into an electric motorcycle, and he discussed his techniques and the things. It was a project still in early process, and so he has an opportunity to kind of mount the motor and the batteries and stuff, and it was good to see that. Definitely gets my wheels turning.
It was really interesting because I talked to him about that project last year at the same event, and it was at that point an idea, like this is what I want to do, but I don't even think he had gotten the bike yet or anything. And this year he had it running, not safely running, and he didn't ride it or anything, but to get a fully electric motorcycle, and it went like it's supposed to go 0 to 65 in like 2 seconds or something crazy.
Yep, crazy.
Or 0 to 45, and anyway, it was cool. well, you guys got anything else, or have you been watching anything else?
Oh my god! I forgot we do this segment.
I have something to.
You don't have to.
I have homework for people. So right before we started the podcast, I learned that Wendell Castle passed away a couple days ago, and I'm going to put a link to his website. But I really encourage people to check out his work. Just absolutely amazing stuff. I think he's written a couple articles in the past for one of the magazines. I think it was Fine Woodworking. And that's how I was introduced to him. But when you dig in, you see some crazy original work. And
what kind of work? I never heard of this person.
Oh, man. So there's a link. I just put a link in the Skype there. And click on the vintage tab when you get there. And it's just some crazy pieces. Yeah, so that's your homework. I'm giving everybody homework to do. Go check out this guy.
Great homework.
Yeah. So I got home at about 2:30, 3 a.m. and Taylor and I kind of hunkered down. We had a little snack to eat. We talked, we caught up, and then we laid in bed and we watched the Netflix special, which was amazing. And I kind of dozed off in the middle of it. I'm going to watch it again. But have you guys seen this movie, Treasures from the Unbelievable? I think it's called. Treasures from the Unbelievable. I just go when I go on the Netflix menu, there is nothing I want to watch. I just scroll. It's like prison, women killers, men killers, prison, women killers. Maybe that's just what I'm watching. But there was a thing about a shipwreck recovery from antiquity, and Damien Hirst was involved because these guys. It's an incredible story. It starts like this. So the guy is he's on a PhD level, like antiquities program or anthropology or archaeology. And he's watching YouTube and he sees that somebody is on vacation in East Africa and they happen to be at the shoreline when a fishing boat comes in and they pull up the net and there's like a little piece of antiquity in the net. It's like a little monkey, like a dried monkey. Like maybe it's even cast out of gold. I forget exactly what it said. And the guy saw that video and he immediately said, wherever that came from, there's more of that. That's from a shipwreck. Those things don't just end up out there individually. So he went and he spent days trying to figure out where the fishermen, he went to Africa where that video was filmed, went out with the fishermen, got a couple of scuba divers. They kept searching. It took 5 days and they found the debris field from this ancient ship that was full of a collection of art. And they needed money. And they ended up getting Damien Hirst because he had just, this is in 2012, 13. He had just sold a huge, somehow Damien Hirst got involved. He just made up millions and millions of dollars off his collection. And they got him involved and he funded this whole recovery. And the artwork they found is insane. All from ancient Greece and ancient Rome. And they found pieces of statues that they already had, like at the British Museum. Like they found the head or the body of a statue that was already in a museum somewhere. They found the other piece of it.
Whoa. Crazy.
And they had bronze castings that weighed like 30 tons at the bottom of the ocean. They had to get a crane out there to like get this giant Medusa. Like this casting was so big, you just can't imagine if this was made 2,000 years ago. How did they make it? It's just insane. So check that.
What was the name of this thing?
Treasures from the Unbelievable. Something like that it was called. I'll find out so the proper link is.
Treasures from the Wreck of the Unbelievable. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. And Damien Hirst named it that because he just said they just kept like the more stuff they pulled up, they just said, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And they found the boat is completely gone because it's disintegrated because all the wood is turned into cellulose. It's gone. But they found ship pins, like pins that held some of the parts of the wood together. And they reverse engineered what they know about ancient ships from the steel and bronze parts they found. And this ship would have been 60 meters long. Incredible.
Sweet. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm looking at the pictures now. Good grief. This looks awesome.
Yeah, so I'm going to go watch it again because, like I said, I dozed off before it ended. But it was just insane. And if anybody likes Damien Hirst, you get a real good bit of interview with him throughout the whole episode.
Sweet. Awesome. Well, mine is our buddy Jocko. We haven't talked about him in a long time, but he put out a video this morning. Well, 2 videos. And I think there's the clickbaity one that everybody's going to want to watch. He made a 1,000 cc motor pencil sharpener. So he took this crazy motor and it's running a pencil sharpener, and you can just dissolve a pencil by sticking it in there. So he did that, and that I actually haven't watched that one yet, but I assume that's similar to his previous videos, which are fantastic. You know, just they're great. But he also put out kind of a behind the scenes thing, and he's calling them Jocko Squared, and it's him trying to figure out, you know, how to do it, or him making things that aren't really projects for YouTube, and it's just kind of behind the scenes. But I actually really, really liked it. It's put together just as well as his normal videos. It's just kind of a different angle on him, and he talks more, and you know, it was just really cool. And I hope that it looks like this was the first one, and he's kind of trying it out, and I really hope it's something he keeps up with, because it was cool. So I'll put that
I had the special privilege to hang out with Jocko on a few occasions. He's come and stayed at the house more than a couple times, and he's such a passionate dude to hang out with. Like the smallest things and the biggest things pique his interest, and he's like me. He has to possess it. Like, he has to experience it. So like, he'll see something in my shop, and he'll like take it and hug it and hold it and like want to experience it. So that passion is contagious. So he's a really great guy to hang out with and to watch.
Cool. I think he and I are doing a talk together somewhere. I think maybe at Maker Central in England.
Oh, right.
He and I and somebody else. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He'll be there, I'm pretty sure. So I'm looking forward to hanging out with him there. Well, I think that's probably it. But we got to thank our Patreon supporters. I was talking on this podcast that I was on the other night, which I'll tell you about later. And we got to talking about Patreon, and they were running ads, and they were asking if we ran ads on our show. And I was like, no, we don't have to, because we have like Patreon support, and it's amazing. And I really meant that. Like, it's super cool that we don't have to deal with ad reads and going back and forth on cost and all that stuff, because Patreon people take care of us. So thank you to all of you that do that.
Yes, thank you guys.
And one of the levels, the highest levels of our support, is us saying your name on the show. And so a special big shout out to Wise Old Al, Evan, and Caitlin, who are awesome, and we got to hang out this weekend. Corey Ward, Malton Make, Works by Solo, Michael Schubert, Dor Sharir. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but that's new. You're new, I think. And Make, Build, Modify. So we are super grateful for everybody that helps us out over there, and it means a lot. And if you want to help the show, you can go to patreon.com/makingit, and you know, like, even $1 is fantastic. And no matter what level you support at, you get access to the after show, which is Patreon exclusive. And it's another little bit of us talking every week. There's usually secret stuff in there, and Jimmy makes more interesting noises in there. Stuff like that. So cool. Well, you guys got anything else for this week?
That's good.
That's good. That's good. And we're done. All right, cool.
All right.
Well, thanks everybody.
Love everybody.
See you later.
Love you. Say it.
I love you. I love you, Jimmy.
You don't love me?
I love you both. See, I can't please everybody.